Now that is much better than my gong. We usually have some silent meditation in the beginning, Laurie, and I don't have one of the gongers. So I don't know, they're going to gong and we'll start. But anyway, before we start, this is Ed Wolf, Laurie. Ed, I want you to meet Laurie Scherrer from Pennsylvania. And this is Francis here. I want you to meet Laurie. And I believe you've met everybody else. We've already gone through introductions in a sense, so this will be good. But I asked Laurie to come on because she's a very, very interesting person and will share about dementia. Because let's face it, that we're all going to have some type, if we live as long as I live, going to have some forgetfulness, some dementia perhaps. But I'm going to hand it over to Laurie. One thing, I want to see your dog again. You still have your dog right there?
Yes, in fact, she thought the bell was the doorbell. So I had to go get her because she was barking and having a fit thinking somebody was at the door. So I had to convince her that no, nobody was at the door. So yeah, this is our little one.
Oh, thank you, Laurie. I'm just going to let you go ahead and share.
Okay. I want to start out by first off saying dementia is not just forgetting things. Dementia is not saying, where did I put my keys? Where did I leave them? Dementia is holding your keys in your hand and saying, what do I do with these? Dementia is not walking into a room and saying, what did I come in here for? Dementia is coming into a room and going, what do I do in this room? Throughout time, even from the time we're little, we're all going to have moments we forget things. High stress, just normal aging, illness can cause some forgetfulness. Dementia comes into play when that's compounded by other things and not just a loss of where did I put something, but a total loss of what I do with it once I have it. So who here has experienced dementia, either yourself or a loved one? You're about everyone. Okay. What is dementia? Somebody tell me, what do you think dementia is?
Okay, Martha.
I recently heard something that and you could check, let me check this out with you, that Alzheimer's is a form of dementia. Is that your understanding?
That is correct.
It's just simply a form of dementia.
It is.
That doesn't answer your question, but I just wanted to.
It is. And let me define dementia so we can move on from there. I want you to picture an umbrella. And you've got the umbrella, and then you have all the little spoke things. Dementia is the umbrella. From that, you have Alzheimer's, vascular, mixed dementia, Lewy body dementia, FTD, which is frontotemporal degeneration. Parkinson's is a form of dementia. Or think of it this way. A car, you have a car, and under that you have Chrysler, Ford, Chevy, Mercedes, Cadillac. And within those, you have different types of cars. So you have Chrysler, and then you have the Chrysler minivan, and you have the 300S, and you have all these different types within that brand. Dementia is the same thing. You have dementia, and then you have Alzheimer's. And within Alzheimer's, you have different types of Alzheimer's. You have FTD, frontotemporal degeneration. And within that, you have behavior variant FTD and aphasia, and many different types within that. But the total term that covers all those, just like a car covers all your brands, dementia covers the whole get-go of them. Does that answer your question, Francis?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm privileged to be with the Visiting Nurses Hospice here in Connecticut, and you know, I went for about a year and a half where most of my patients had various degrees of Alzheimer's, and it was anyway, various degrees of dementia, and we had someone come in and give us an in-service. It was really helpful. So
good. Okay, I think, Martha, did you start to say something before when I said, what is dementia?
I used to call Martha. Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking that the expression of it that I have observed most closely is like a change in personality, becoming a different type of person.
What do you think someone living with dementia looks like?
Like anybody else.
When you picture someone living with dementia, I'm one of the faces of dementia. I have dementia. I have frontotemporal degeneration. My brain is dying from the front back. So I remember a lot of things from my childhood and from years before. I have more trouble remembering what I had for breakfast or what I did yesterday. So I'm not old and in a wheelchair and don't know who my loved ones are. Today I do. So there's many different, someone can look totally normal. All right, maybe I don't look totally normal, but somewhat normal. You can look like your average person, yet have dementia. I want to talk about the different types of dementia, and that might help you out also. The one that is most widely diagnosed is Alzheimer's, and 62% of the dementias are related to Alzheimer's. However, I personally think that figure is very off, because I've found that first thing the doctor does when he diagnoses you is he says, oh, it's Alzheimer's. Why? Because most neurologists don't really understand thoroughly the types of dementia. So it's the easiest just to peg it as that. Alzheimer's causes problems with memory, language, reasoning, and generally that starts somewhere around age 65 or older, generally. That doesn't mean it can't start earlier. Then there's what's called Lewy body dementia. Lewy body is, I have a lot of friends with Lewy body. That's a really sad dementia because part of what it includes is hallucinations. You might think you have bugs climbing all over your skin. You might think there's somebody standing in the room with you. It also causes a lot of sleep deprivation. I have a friend that ended up in the hospital because he had not been to sleep at all in 10 days. Not at all. Couldn't sleep. but the hallucinations are really bad. Frequently, spouses have to sleep in separate rooms because they might wake up thinking that their loved one is trying to kill them. And so what do? They try to kill them back or something to that effect. So it's a pretty harsh dementia. Then there's vascular dementia. And vascular dementia can cause impaired judgment, difficulty with motor skills. Frequently, that's one of the first things that starts to go is their balance, their motor skills. And that often also leads to strokes and heart diseases. Frontotemporal dementia, and that's what I have. It's known as FTD. That doesn't mean I have flowers on my brain. That sounds really nice, FTD, but no, it has nothing to do with flowers. For those of you not in the United States, FTD is our largest flower delivery service. FTD causes a lot of personality changes, language issues, so I forget how to talk sometimes. Balance, I have to use a walker when I'm with people because when people are coming at me, it's like snow on the window, and I think they're right here and they're gonna knock me over, so I lose my balance a lot. It can cause me to forget things like that I have to go to the bathroom. So it can lead to things like incontinence. Balance has been one of my larger issues. The speech is hard. It also tends to cause a lot of personality changes where you actually become violent. I had a friend who had been a Baptist minister for years and years and years and had FTD. And they did end up having to put him in a facility because he became too violent. But part of what happened with him is he started cursing like an old sailor, flashing the F-bomb right and left, which he had never done in his life. And I'm going to explain why that happens about the files in our brain. Then Parkinson's, I think you're all familiar with that. Parkinson's, you get the tremors, and which you get with a lot of other things. I get tremors also, but not like Parkinson's. Parkinson's people generally tend to really shake a lot. You have mixed dementias, which is, okay, the doctor says, well, I think you have this and this, which kind of narrows it down to, geez, I'm not really sure. So we're going to say you're mixed. You've got a little bit of everything. That's kind of, and there are more, pardon me, those are the main types of dementia. With many of them, many of them are very close, similar symptoms. For example, I read you kind of what the different diseases are, but in my case, I get really bad tremors. I forget how to talk. I lose my balance. So if I went into a doctor and in addition to memory and not being able to do things I used to do, I throw that at them. It could go into a lot of different types of dementia. For me, one of the first things that went was math. I couldn't add or subtract for anything. Totally, numbers made no sense to me, which is pretty funny because for 18 years I was vice president at a bank. So, you never know where it's going to hit you. But within the diseases, within the dementias, you can have multiple symptoms from multiple types of dementias. One of the reasons that people who have dementia will often do things like this minister that cursed so bad, and he also was very inappropriate towards women, very inappropriate gestures towards women. The reason is, as your brain is dying from the front back, You no longer have those files in the front of your brain that store your information, including your information on you don't do this, you don't do that. And so what do? You pull the files from the back part of your brain. And in the back part of that brain is that file that says how you should behave, things you don't do, things you don't say. Well, if the files in the front of your brain are destroyed, where are you pulling files from? You're pulling them from the back. And therefore, many people with dementia will start to do those things they never did before, because that's all they remember is those things stored in the back of their brain. Pardon me, I'm sorry. My husband and I work very hard to come up with strategies to help me to live independently. We have many things that we've modified within the house, within my life. My closets are organized a certain way. My sheets have a tag at the bottom of each sheet because I couldn't remember how to make a bed. So now all I have to do is put the tag at the bottom of the bed and I know where the sheet goes. So we've come up with a lot of different strategies so we can live. But I want to know from you guys, what have you experienced with dementia and what questions might you have about dementia?
Dan, go ahead.
Yes, I have a number of questions. My experience with dementia is somewhat limited. My nephew's wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at about age 50. And so my sister and her son were dealing with that for about 10 years. And Robin was the patient's name. And Robin had a high level of activity. So when my sister Dolores would have Robin for a day, I mean, she could wear out anybody. She wanted to go. She wanted to see things. So they would go to downtown Philadelphia and they'd visit the Pink Sisters, and it was just a constant high level of activity. My other experience is that I'm 82. I have two older sisters. I have three older sisters, actually. Dolores is 85. And then I have a sister, excuse the name, their pet names. Dolly is 92 and Posey is 93. And in the past year, Dolly has had a phenomenal loss of memory. Now, Dolly was always a very sweet person, and she still is a sweet person. And when you meet her, she won't initiate a conversation, but she always responds in a kind way. But Dolly has experienced what my sister Dolores, who has done some caregiving in a retirement home, my sister Dolores calls it sundowners problem. And it's evidently, my sister Dolores says it's commonly known when the sun goes down, my sister Dolly gets agitated. She gets anxious about where she is, and she thinks she's one place and should be at another place. And so it's a very stressful time for her and for others.
What question do you have, Dan?
Well, my question was my niece, my sister's daughter-in-law, she at one time the disease was called PEX something or other, I forget. And but then later on, it seemed that was not the diagnosis. So are there misdiagnoses, or is it just that all of these various illnesses are kind of intermixed?
Misdiagnosis occurs in dementia a lot, a lot. Typically, FTD is the largest, is the most common dementia for people that are under 65. That's the most common
And that stands for?
FTD, frontotemporal degeneration.
Okay.
That's the most common. I have at least 6 friends that were originally diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and then their diagnosis became changed to Lewy body dementia. One of the scary parts about that is that with Lewy body dementia, I told you about the hallucinations and all with Lewy body. There are a number of medications that increase your hallucinations and your sleeplessness with Lewy body. And frequently when they're first diagnosed with Alzheimer's, they're started on some of those drugs. And then when they act up, they're given I can't think of the name of it, psychotic drugs, and that just increases it more. But misdiagnosis is extremely common.
Might want to mute your mics. There you go. Go ahead, Laurie.
It's extremely common. It really is. And as I said, majority of doctors are going to first say, oh, you've got Alzheimer's. That's the first thing they say because they don't have to do more testing, and that's common. I want to talk about sundowning. Sundowning is a real event, but I look at sundowning 2 ways. Number one of my big issues is processing. If we were having this conversation on the phone, I would have lost you a long time ago. My processing time is slow. So when you're here in your conversation, I'm still back here trying to catch up. Now, I want you to think if all day long you have to think about every single thing you do. I have to think to pick up my glass. I have to think to take a drink. I have to think to get dressed. Things that normally we just kind of do, I have to think about that. If from the time you got up in the morning, say at 8 o'clock, until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you had to think about every single thing you did, do you think you'd be tired?
Mm.
Mentally, I get so mentally tired. Frequently, I need to go lay down or listen to my music for an hour or so to try and recharge my brain, give my brain a rest. I think frequently we talk about sundowning as though that's the condition. The condition is my brain's tired. I've spent all day, my brain has been running a marathon all day. Of course it's tired. Number 2, when the light goes down, what happens when you turn a lamp on? You get shadows. I'm having issues with my head changing light, changing patterns. And now the sun goes down and everything's darker, everything is changed, and there's shadows. So I have to decide, is that a shadow or is that the leg of the chair? What is that really? Is that going to mess me up more? Yeah, it's going to get me confused. When you have someone that's experiencing sundowning, 2 things. 1, make sure they're getting some rest mentally. They don't have to sleep necessarily. Make sure their brain is getting a rest, that people aren't talking to them or making them do something. Turn on their favorite music. Give them a little bit time to rest their brain. And number 2, as many lights as you can get in a room, the better it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So you break up the shadows.
Wow. Does that answer that, Dan? Anybody else? Pete, being a pastor in a very large parish, where you're bound to have parishioners as well as loved ones of parishioners with dementia. Do you have any questions to ask Laurie? Any?
No, no real questions. Thank you for sharing. It does help my understanding of it a lot better. And just to see that people care for their loved ones with the disease is really heartwarming. I mean, just to know what they're going through, especially as it progresses.
Pete, I have a book I'd like to recommend for you, but I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. So I'll send the title to David, and maybe he can pass it on to you. It's on Amazon, but I'm just blank. I'm sorry. It's a book that was written basically for pastors, priests, religious leaders about dealing with people with dementia, and it faith-based dealing with people living with dementia. So if you would like the name of that, I'll send it to David. I've actually passed it on to a number of ministers who have told me it's been very helpful.
Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, Pete. One thing, Francis, to be right with you, I attended one of Laurie's seminars on Thursday, and I used the word caregiver, and she suggested that I not be called a caregiver, but a care partner. And I really appreciate that, Laurie, because this is what it is. Francis, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Thank you. It's good to hear the care partner thing too. It feels good. One thing that I find is often I'm in the service I do, often I'm dropped into a situation when people get to the point where they're asking for a hospice volunteer or some form of hospice. We're just kind of, so what I do is I get coaching from my supervisor at the visiting nurses. She gives me a little overview of the person, little few things, ways that I can connect. And it's so helpful. There's been a couple situations where I didn't have that for some reason. We didn't have that information, but what I wanted to bear witness to is one of my most I call this like a bridge building tool. Is I try to find out what type of music the person likes to listen to, and I have this cell phone, and I'll go onto YouTube or somewhere else and find, and I find it's really effective as a bridge building tool, regardless of the depth of the dementia. I mean, obviously sometimes it's hard, but I just so thankful to have this. It's just a little, I can open my go to YouTube, pull up, different types of music, and it's such a part of my intention and the way we're trained is to create presence. We want to be my responsibility is to create much as I can, be a catalyst for creating that the presence. You guys know what I'm talking about. That the joy, just a gentle, loving presence, and that music can be such a tool. So, where's my mute button? There it is.
I agree with you. I actually, and by the way, in the chat, if everyone knows how to work the chat, I do have a website. It's dementiadays.com. And that I also put my email in there, which is dementiadays@gmail.com. On my website, you'll find different seminars that I've spoken at. I have a lot of blogs in there. So if you get a chance to read that, feel free to do that, and you can follow it if you want. Music is important to the soul. There's no doubt. How can you walk into a store when they're playing something upbeat and not tap your foot or something? We all do that. I don't know very many people that can just ignore all songs. There's always that song that makes you want, you know, a little bit. I have actually on my iPad, I have 3 different groups of music that I listen to depending on where I'm at. One is a nature and meditation, just birds singing, brooks babbling type thing. Another is my Christian music. And then the other is my praise music. And depending on where I'm at during the day that I need my music, depends on which file we're going to pull from. There's times that I can't listen to all my music because stringed instruments and flutes can often just do a number on my head. I can't stand that high pitch. So although I love that music, there's times my head that's not good for my head. So I have to be careful too, although I love it. It's like, yeah, I love it, but not right this moment. When I'm having a meltdown, which is not a pretty sight, it's very ugly, my music is my go-to. I need my music and my rocking chair. Headphones, music. And headphones are also important because it helps you block out the other things around. Another thing that can be important is sunglasses. If you're in an area with a lot of stimulation, my husband was having a shoulder surgery, and we're in this waiting room at the surgical center waiting for him to get done. And I'm not doing too good. The noise, the stimulation, people moving, bells ringing, all this stuff, just. So I put on my sunglasses, my headphones, and my music. Why the sunglasses? It helps to break some of the stimulation, because stimulation and noise can definitely have a horrible impact.
Thank you, Laura. Anybody else? Colleen, do you have any reflection questions?
I do. I have dementia on both sides of my family. So father and it wasn't my mother, but an aunt and my grandmother. And so I'm just wondering what, does that mean that I will be diagnosed with this eventually? Is it hereditary?
Some are. Some forms of dementia are. And Colleen, I'll tell you, there are tests that you can get done where you get a spinal tap and they check to see whether or not you have that particular gene. But I want to ask you this. Do you want to know ahead of time?
Well, I'm kind of a control freak, so yes.
I think that, yeah, I get you on that one. To go through having a spinal tap and finding out that, yes, you have the gene that means you may get that disease. Is that any further off than where you're at now that you say, okay, my relatives all had it, so?
No.
Because all that's going to tell you is that you do have the gene that may possibly lead to it, depending on how much that gene grows. So not all dementias are hereditary. FTD, I don't have anybody in my family that had FTD. But some are. And that would be in Alzheimer's at that point. As far as we know, as far as medical science knows, that would be reflected as an Alzheimer's.
And do we know, are there any causes that we know of? Is it environmental? Is it, we talked about genetic, but what about, is it from eating fried foods? Do they know if there's any causality with this?
They don't know. Just like with cancer, they don't really know what causes cancer. And in fact, I get frustrated with the Alzheimer's Association because their main thing is find a cure, find a cure. That sounds really great, and they're spending billions of dollars trying to find a cure. The Problem is, they don't know the cause yet.
Mm.
They haven't fully identified what it is. When you go to a doctor's office, they can't definitely show a test that says you have Alzheimer's, you have FTD, you have Lewy body. And yet we're going to find a cure. Well, if you don't know what you're trying to find a cure for, how are you going to find a cure for it?
Yeah.
That one kind of, I think we're tossing money into the air at this point. We need to first find the causes of some of these diseases, but that's not where the research money is going.
Recently, I heard that through the grapevine, so to speak, that there's a connection between Alzheimer's and diabetes, and sugar intake, So,
I've been told I need to use coconut oil and take coconut oil every day. I've been told I need to go on a strict diet of just vegetables and fruit. I've been told there are so many things out there, but I'll share this with you. In 1996, my parents were missionaries in South Africa. And my mother was diagnosed with inoperable lung cancer. Came home to the United States, and we went to the doctor, and the doctor confirmed it's inoperable. We said, how long does she have? I said, well, I'm not God, but based on how progressed it is, I would guess 3 to 6 months. My mother lived 2 years and 9 months after that. But the day she was diagnosed, and I was at the doctor's office with her, they set us up with a nurse where we had a number we could call 24/7 with any questions we had. We left with a stack of literature, websites. A clergy contacted us about 5 hours after we got home to pray with us and ask us if we had any questions. Could he come and pray with us? We had a social worker who came to the house to see if there was anything that she could do to help us in the house. The day I was diagnosed, the doctor said, well, you have early onset Alzheimer's and FTD. And I looked at him, I said, what about my career? Said, you need to get your affairs in order, spend as much time with your family as you can, come back in 6 months and let's see how far you've progressed. I got no literature. I got no call from a clergy. I had no social worker. I had no nurse, nobody to call, not even one piece of literature. Dementia in the United States, and I say the United States because this is changing a lot in Europe. Dementia in the United States is treated very much like that. Go home and die. And by the way, come back in 6 months. Let's see how bad you are. Cancer has come a long way. My mother passed away April of 1999. When she was diagnosed, when she had cancer, the chemo made her deathly sick. She threw up constantly. She was in so much pain, we had her on morphine. Now, they give you medicines, you don't throw up anymore, not as much. They have plenty of new pain medications that someone doesn't have to suffer like my mother did. So from 1999 to now, they've made great, great strides in not curing the cancer, but helping the patient or stopping the progression of the cancer. I believe the day will come, probably not in my lifetime, but I do believe the day will come when we will learn more on how to treat dementias. For now, we need to start with treating dementia the same way we treat any other deadly disease. We need to treat the person like a human being. We need to treat them with care, sympathy, and compassion. Currently, they're not. When I was diagnosed with dementia, I can't tell you how many of our friends never call or come around anymore. Why? In part, they don't know what to say. They don't know how I'm going to act. I went to the doctor, and when he found out I had dementia, he started talking to my husband. We were talking about me, but I wasn't even there. He started talking to my husband. Because I have dementia, I'm not a person anymore. And that's frequently the way we treat people living with dementia. That needs to change. That needs to change. Dementia should be treated with the same compassion as we treat so many other diseases.
Ed, go ahead. You have your unmute yourself, Ed.
This has been absolutely incredible information from my perspective, and thank you very much. My wife's sister was originally diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And of course, you can imagine the whole family and extended family panicked and everything else was going on. But fortunately, one of the daughters said, let's go to a specialist. And they went up to Knoxville. And I said, no, you don't have Alzheimer's. You have a form of dementia. I don't know what it is. That was about 2 years ago. And she drove from Huntsville to our place 5 hours and had no problem getting here. The key thing that I'd like to know about, so I can share with my wife, is I'm not sure the family, the sister-in-law or the daughters, really know how to respond, how to help, how to be a care partner, how to understand. I think some of what you say is they are waiting for it to get worse rather than take it one day at a time and enjoy the relationship with their mother and the husband is somewhat of this person who his wife has done everything for him all his life. I'll bet internally he is panicking. So if you have any suggestions, you mentioned what is your website again that you have? Or can you send that to us, David?
It's in the chat. Ed, if you'll go down and hit your chat button.
Oh.
Dementia Days. And
Say that again, dementia what?
Hit your chat button. You have a chat button down at the bottom of your screen?
No.
Well, I'm surprised you don't. Okay, I'll email it to you, okay?
Good.
Anything else, Ed?
No, I just wanted to thank you very much. And thank you, David, for having this subject because it is incredible. And I agree with you. It's there was a comment made to me once that when you have a mental disease, nobody brings you a casserole.
You got that right. That is exactly right.
Yeah.
It is true.
Yeah.
And I'll use my mother. My mother lived with us until she passed away. And she got flowers. She got candy. People brought us over meals. I've never yet gotten a card. So And sure, my husband gives me flowers now and then, but that's different than someone sending flowers. So you're exactly right with that. It is correct. You get treated totally different. And I want to go back to your question. Number one, if your sister-in-law has dementia, well, it was your sister-in-law, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I cannot stress enough the importance of getting involved in groups with other people living with dementia. When I was diagnosed, the doctor literally made me feel like I was the only person in the world under 65 who had dementia. I was 55 at the time. I thought like this was totally a freak thing. Nobody else my age had dementia. I started researching and doing things. And lo and behold, I came across a group called Dementia Mentors. And somehow or another, I got involved on the chat. Holy camoles, there was 6 people living with dementia my age on a virtual chat. And now I have about 60 friends. David, how many people do you see on the dementia side?
Oh, quite a few.
I have 50 or 60 friends living with dementia that are, pardon me, anywhere from 50 to 75. I wasn't the only one. But what's really awesome is we talk about our symptoms. We talk about what's going on. We help each other. You don't know the loneliness you can feel when suddenly you're like, I can't work anymore. I'm used to working 60, 70 hours a week, and now I'm at home going, okay, what do I do today? And just the loneliness, because you do lose some of your friends. You do. The loneliness, the fear. So to be able to get involved with other people with dementia is awesome. It's the best thing I ever did, because I was ready to take the doctor's advice and go home and die, because that's what he told me to do, go home and die. But instead, today, I'm able to live. I really live. I jump out of airplanes, I scuba dive, I jump off of mountains in South Africa, and I get on here and talk to lovely people. I live. Do I have challenges? Yeah. Have we had to change a lot of things in my life? Absolutely. A lot of things I have to do differently. My whole house is organized differently so that when I forget things, I know where to look. I have to do a lot of things differently, but I can still live. But it's the support of the friends and people helping with how to live, the strategies to live, that really make a big difference. And any of you, I put my email address in there. Feel free to have somebody contact me and I'll point them in the right direction. With Dementia Action Alliance, I have the joy of speaking every now and then. I spoke 4 times in South Africa last year. And, that's a joy that I have. I take it we're out of time. Are we out of time, David?
No.
Okay.
What I'm trying to bring up is the Dementia Action Alliance. So you all can see it right here.
Yes.
The DAA, Dementia Action Alliance.
It's daanow.org.
Is it now? Yeah, okay.
daanow.org.
Okay, great.
Um,
I have one question, if I may ask. How does your husband deal with his stress and anxiety?
How does he deal with that? Hold on one second.
You're muted, Laurie. You're muted.
Well, come here a second. My husband went to come over and dropped. I hope that was your mouse and not your computer. I'm going to let him answer that as soon as he can get over here.
That'd be great. Because I think a lot of us are either are care partners or will be. Oh, here's your husband. Oh,
And he had surgery, so he's a little sore here.
Stress and anxiety. this is what she does to you when she's yeah.
Oh,
This is Roy.
Hi.
all right.
Hello.
So,
Yeah.
how do you, I hate to use the word deal with, but I don't know what the worst, with your own stress, anxiety, sometimes anger, perhaps, and fear. And just to name a few things.
Well, it was tougher while I was working. And I retired in September of 18. So I've been here to keep her going 24 hours a day. She gets on her chats and she's having a great time, and it's keeping her going. Like she said, she used to, when she was working, I didn't see her for 12 to 16 hours a day. So, but yeah, we just, whatever, we find things that stress her out, like a 3-way light switch can totally give her a meltdown. So we figured that out. We went over and we taped off the one switch. Now it's up is on, down is off. You don't go to the other switch, things like that. So it's just finding out what triggers it and get rid of it.
We go for walks. When I'm really anxious, I need to walk, and I need to walk fast. He walks slow, but he stays behind me to make sure I'm okay.
She's got little legs.
One thing we found, one day I was really agitated. I just wanted to punch something. I was so frustrated. And what he did was he sat me on his lap. He took my hands like this, and he can't show you now because I'd hurt him. He took my hands like this and just kept rubbing my back. And I'm like trying to pound his chest, and I'm screaming. And he just kept rubbing my back. And then I started to calm down a bit. And then as I stopped pounding, he let my arms go and relaxed. And then we just sat there. And let ourselves calm down. We've spent a lot of time on what is causing it, because if we reduce my anxiety, we're going to reduce his anxiety.
That's good stuff.
Reducing my anxiety.
Never mind.
You're reducing yours. We found that if we can reduce my anxiety, we reduce his anxiety, and therefore what is causing it. The light switch, okay, in the kitchen, you were able to turn on the light switch on one end of the room or the other. Problem is, if you turn it off on one end, then the switch is up on the other, right? I had such a meltdown. I swore the house was going to catch fire. Something was wrong with the electricity. Nothing he said could convince me otherwise. Something was wrong with our electric. I mean, the switch is down, but the light is on. Something's wrong. And it took us a couple days, but we finally figured out what my big meltdown was that kept both of us up all night. The light switch kept us up all night. I freaked out. I couldn't sleep all night. I swore the house was going to catch fire. So to us, we put more importance on, okay, why? What caused the meltdown? What is causing the anxiety, the fear? And we really try to figure that out.
What about support groups for care partners? Online support groups for Lucy, be quiet. My dog is acting out. She's having a meltdown right now.
Don't listen.
Barking.
Don't listen.
But are there any online support groups for care partners?
Thank you, honey. You can go back.
Okay.
You okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm going to take my phone with me.
There you go. Thanks. I'll tell you, we haven't really found any that he's gotten involved in. They're very few, and many of them, pardon my language, many of them, the care partner just wants a bitch session. That's all they do. That's all they want. They just want to complain and moan and bellyache. And that's not him. That's not us.
Yeah.
He wants solutions. He wants support, not that. And so far, that's all we've been able to find. So if you find one, I'd be interested in hearing about it, because I actually have people ask that question a lot.
Thank you, Laurie. I was going to ask Renata and whether you have any questions, or you, Monica.
Yeah, I mean, not so much
You're up.
question. I some years ago I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, and I freaked out thinking it would develop into dementia. I really thought. The doctor kept saying it's anxiety disorder, but it felt like dementia, and it's, to some extent, it still does. I haven't found anybody else apart from my own brother where I'm now who's got the same thing, but he hasn't developed any memory problems whatsoever, but he's got this anxiety disorder as well, which is a mental illness. And I mean, I know very little about it. I'm with the doctor, and people have tried very hard to help me find the emotions which had gone, the emotional attachment, and that hasn't worked so far. So I really don't know whether it will develop into dementia or not. I really don't know. I don't know whether anybody else does. But I think there's a great fear about getting dementia that absolutely terrifies you about losing your mind, whatever that means. And maybe it isn't like that. I mean, you know, I don't know whether you can say anything about it.
It's scary, and in particular, it's scary the way the doctors present it. When the doctor presented it to Roy and I, we drove down to Philadelphia because we had been to 4 doctors and none of us wanted to give us the diagnosis. They kept referring us to another specialist. So we finally went down to Philadelphia, and the doctor said, well, I'm just confirming what the other 4 doctors didn't want to tell you. And he said, you have FTD and early onset Alzheimer's. Go home and die, basically. We sat in the car and cried. Our image was somebody with dementia sitting in a wheelchair, not knowing their loved ones, not knowing who anyone was. And the doctor didn't give us any hope. He gave us no encouragement, no support, nothing. Well, if a doctor tells you to go home and die, what are you going to do? I curled up. I was depressed. I was sad. I came home and I prepared to die. I made sure we went to see an elder law attorney. We got our will together. We got our do not resuscitate together. Started cleaning out closets, getting rid of stuff, assigning who gets what jewelry. That was the first few months of my diagnosis, was preparing to die. And then along with that is the depression. I mean, the amount of depression and loneliness, because again, you feel like you're all alone in the world, and he was working. One day I'm sitting at the computer and I'm feeling pretty sorry for myself. And I swore a white angel flew by the window. I'm like, what? I keep doing stuff on the computer, and a little later, I saw a white angel. I know I saw a white angel. Well, it turns out God really blessed us with an albino bird. And in fact, we named him Albie. Albie was here the first 3 years after I was diagnosed. Albie was here from October till April. He'd hang out in the yard. He'd come up towards the patio. He stayed in the tree right by my patio doors, and Albie would just fly by my window, and he literally looked like this white angel. And I think God was sending me his sign. He was sending me the peace. And I got to the point, I kicked myself in the tush, and I said, Laurie, you have been a sales trainer. You have been a motivator. You have never allowed yourself to live a life of being depressed. get over it. And if you have one day left on the earth, make the best of it. And I changed life around. I started seeing how many people I could help. I felt as though God had given me a new calling in life. God had a different purpose for me. My purpose isn't to have a really fantastic career and make money, although that was nice. But that's not my purpose anymore. My purpose is to make sure that doctors learn how they're diagnosing people is really messed up and they've got to change. My purpose is to help people. I mentor 3 people that were diagnosed with dementia, helping them figure out strategies, helping them get past the first 2 years. So once a week for 1 hour, I mentor each of them for 1 hour every single week. I do dementia discussions for 1 hour every single week. I'm on the DAA board of directors, DAA advisory board, and on and on and on. I have a purpose in life. That purpose gives me a reason to get out of bed every day. That purpose gives me a reason to live rather than die. And that's what I intend to do. Is it hard? Do I have a couple minutes to read something to you or no?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
thank you very much for that very powerful statement of faith, which gives me an incredible sense of courage and enables me, empowers me to not wait till other people do something, but actually take the fate into my own hand and actually do something about it. And that's really, really powerful. And I'm really grateful. My faith and my meditation, I find a very great support on the meditation online and also my local church where I'm well connected to, and to get that sense of peace, that inner calm after a meditation, that is your path to God, which matters to me. That is my journey, and walk it, whether people understand it or not. My family here doesn't, but a brother that seemed to be just, we're not on the same wavelengths. I still walk my path. I said, I've got to go to listen to my meditation online. And there's, oh no, can we just stay here for a bit longer, have another beer? I said, no, I'm going to go. And that's part of empowering yourself. And I'm very grateful for what you've said. I'm so glad I came. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I think, to me, I was a workaholic, as my husband alluded to. I worked 60, 70 hours every week. I loved my job. I loved working. But what that meant was I have a beautiful backyard. It's got arborvitaes all around it. I have such a chorus of birds in my backyard that I never heard until I stopped working. I never heard them. We've actually had the Audubon Society here because our yard is like migration central. Everybody says you need to put a sign out saying birds enter here, apartments for rent. We get every kind of bird that's migrating stops here. I never knew that. I lived here 20 years. I never noticed it. Well, I do now. And I'm thankful that God has, in many ways, opened my eyes and my ears, that I can enjoy the beauty around me that I never had time for. And isn't that sad when you think about it?
Yeah.
I want to share this with you because
Okay,
one thing.
Go ahead, Laurie.
One thing I do say is so often care partners have a tough life. They have a tough job and it's hard. But when you meet someone with dementia, I want you to also remember it's hard on them too. They're hurting inside, whether they can express it or not. I wrote this one day. In fact, this was not long after I had the meltdown over the light switch. Last night I wept. I wept with an uncontrollable cry that consumed my throat, my heart, and my gut, wrenching from me the feelings of guilt, loss, and fear that had been held inside, and stripping away every ounce of joy and hope. I wept for the loss of my plans and my dreams for life. I wept because I know I'm no longer what or who I was, and I'm afraid of not being able to control the evolving me. I wept for losing my freedom to get into a car and go and do whatever, whenever. I wept for the loss of memories that now are only photographs to me. I wept for the financial burdens this has brought. I wept for my family and the changes that they will have to make and the challenges that they will have to endure. There was no consoling me, for there was no comfort for the overwhelming grief of what was and what is yet to come. I wept until my shaking body gave into exhaustion and I drifted off to sleep. Dementia, whether it's Alzheimer's, FTD, LBD, whatever, it doesn't just happen overnight. It slowly robs us of our past, our present, and our future. Bit by bit, taking away the person we were as it slowly eats away our brain. I can no longer be the Laurie that I was. It's robbed me of the ability to have a successful career, entertain large groups of people, enjoy parties, drive to see friends or relatives, or even keep up with household tasks. It would have been so much easier if I didn't have the transition of knowing what's happening to me. It's difficult seeing myself becoming less responsible and more dependent. It's frustrating when confusion takes over my ability to reason, think, communicate, and comprehend. I am still Laurie. However, I know by the way people treat me and by the way that I react that I'm different, I'm changing, and at times I'm afraid, and at times I weep. But today I rejoice. The weeping's over. The day is new, and I'm so thankful for all the things I still can share and accomplish. I'm thankful I can laugh with my Aunt Joyce while getting a manicure and laugh with Roy over the beautiful colors of the huge bruise on my butt when I fell on the ice, and laugh with my sister Becky over the ridiculously difficult puzzle I gave her. I'm thankful there's joy in the little things. I'm sure my emotions will once again invade my happy space and require some grieving time. But today I'm going to laugh and I'm going to enjoy all the beauty in my life.
Amen.
Oh,
So much. What a celebration that was. That
so
was wonderful.
beautiful, so beautiful.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you, Laurie. This has been so wonderful, and I just can't begin to tell you how much it's meant to me and to everyone here. Any parting words for Laurie? Anything at all? And I'm going to have Martha offer a prayer again, and thanks. For
I would add my gratitude and ask you, David, could you speak briefly about what we're going to go use on Thursday, this coming Thursday?
this coming Thursday. I haven't decided yet. I will let you know as soon as I know what we're going to do. We may do a reading from scripture reading for the following Sunday, because Ash Wednesdays obviously is Wednesday, and then we meet Thursday. So I thought I would pick the Sunday scripture readings.
Oh, that sounds good. Thank you.
Of this Sunday, David, is it this Sunday? The scripture reading of this Sunday?
Yeah, it'll be for the next Sunday. Not today, but next Sunday. Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah,
You mean for next Thursday?
Yeah. That's what I want to say. Thank you, Monica. Okay, thank you, Lord. Go ahead.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And please, you have my email and all. Please feel free to, any questions you have, contact me.
Laurie, I just want to show you Tessie. As soon as we mention prayer, she knows. See her right there on the bed? Tessie. She's so used to our meeting every Sunday for 5 years that as soon as she hears the word prayer, she knows we're ready to stop. Martha, will you go ahead and just offer a prayer of thanks?
Well, after I first tell Princess how marvelous this was, then it helped me understand the phases my mother went through, because I went through about 11 years of Alzheimer's with her before she passed, and it was not a good time. But thank you. At least I can understand better. Holy Creator, eternal Lord, we thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for the gift of being able to enjoy a bird song, of being able to enjoy flowers, of being able to listen to other people and learn from them. We thank you for so many blessings. Now go with us, be with us, give us strength and courage to live the lives you have intended we live, and keep us as strong in faith as we possibly can be. We ask in the name of the Christ you sent to us, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
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 Thank you so much, Laurie. God bless you and
Night all.
love you
Bye.
all.